Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of the fall 2020 8-week class. It is going quickly, as you can see. We are already a quarter of the way done with the class. So I hope that you're doing well. I hope that you're learning things. I've got things set up with prerequisites and all that to move modules to try to keep it moving in an orderly fashion, ultimately so that it's beneficial to you. I want you to do well. I want you to all get, learn a lot, do well in the class, and so that's why I do what I do. I also make these announcements to help out, and right now we're getting sort of limited access on that, so I would suggest that you watch them, because sometimes I throw out extra credit points, so something to think about. So here we are, it's November. Can you believe it's November already? You've got, 6 weeks left to go of the class. So there's some things coming up that you need to know about. We're going to open up another 2 modules, and then we're going to have the assignments. So it's set up so that you have to complete the modules and the quizzes before you move to the assignment. So the goal is that you get all that work done by some point on Thursday. And that's how every week works. You're getting that now. This week, you will also have the first of your 3 big tests. So instead of having a midterm and a final, I break it up into 3s. It's just a little more manageable for you and for me in terms of the material that I want to get across. So on top of the usual stuff, you're going to have openings. So you'll have your module open on Monday. 2 modules. You will have your assignments open up on Tuesday. You will have test 1 open up on Thursday, and then you have until Sunday to get that done. So those tests, the questions come from the quizzes primarily. So if you're doing those and doing well, you should be good. There is also a listening portion. It's not really difficult. I don't ask you obscure things, and they're always connected to the songs that are in the listening guides in the textbook. But if you've gone through the materials and you've done what you've needed to do, then they should be pretty simple. I wouldn't ask you weird things like how many beats per minute is this song, or something strange like that. It would be really like, I also won't ask you title or artist because they're Spotify links, so you see those. So you got to sort of think about, okay, well, what am I listening to? How does this fit? So that's coming up. I do want you to be mindful of your concert report that's coming up down the line in a few weeks. So be thinking about that, be starting that, because it's going to come here before we know it. So in terms of the materials, where are we at? You learned about blues, you learned about jazz, you've learned about rhythm and blues, and then we got to rock and roll. So we finally get to rock and roll, and Elvis is the big game changer, right? You learned that already. What happens with Elvis is that you have this blending. You have these 2 styles of music coming through. The rhythm and blues, which was really black artists that had some white audience, but also black audience. You had rockabilly, which is sort of this blending. You had the country influences, the folk influences, all these sort of things going on. And then what happens with Elvis is that you get this combination. It's sort of referred to a lot as the Big Bang of rock and roll, where basically you had an artist that too many who didn't know what he looked like thought he was black. He actually couldn't even get on certain programs because they assumed he was black or he sounded too black. I know that seems strange to our ears, but again, that's 70 years ago, right? And so what he was able to do, which you hopefully got in your assignment, was he was able to bridge these things and open music wide open and start to break down those racial barriers. Because of Elvis coming through and becoming a hit through his music and his movies and all of that, his TV performances in particular, that opened up the likes or the avenues for the likes of Jerry Lee Lewis and Buddy Holly and the Everly Brothers and Carl Perkins. So you had these artists that probably never would have broken through if Elvis hadn't done it. And on the black side, what you had with people like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, is you had artists who were successful already. But what Elvis did by breaking down those barriers was he allowed them to become exposed to a much wider audience. So while there was some resentment early on with some of those artists, ultimately they realized Elvis made them much more famous and financially successful than they would have been. So that's really like that first major game changer rock and roll. The next one will be the Beatles, but we're not quite there yet. Okay, so what happens now? Rock and roll kind of hits, explodes and then fades away. Buddy Holly dies in a plane crash. Elvis gets drafted. Chuck Berry gets arrested. Little Richard gives it up to be a preacher. Jerry Lee Lewis gets arrested for marrying his third cousin, and who was 13. And so all these things go on, and it creates this void. And there was a lot of hatred towards rock and roll. Society did not like it at all because of what it was doing racially. So what happens now is that this pop music comes in that fills this void, and you get the music of what we call the Brill Building, with Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller and Goffin and Jerry Goffin and Carole King and all these folks coming through. You get the breakthrough of The Twist, which is probably one of the most important songs in the history of rock and roll because it broke down barriers racially as well as generationally. And so you're going to be learning into this teen style music that comes about. It also will bring out surf music, which was a very important West Coast style of music. It was really dance oriented, and you're going to see a lot of that in pop music. You've probably already seen that then, and you certainly see it now, where a lot of it is very dance oriented. And so you had shows like American Bandstand and the likes that were really bringing this out. And then the surf music really leads to the Beach Boys. And the Beach Boys are hugely significant in the history of rock and roll because they were a big influence on a lot of artists like the Beatles and the Who. And there ended up being a kind of rivalry between the Beach Boys and the Beatles. And if the Beach Boys hadn't been there, they probably wouldn't have pushed the Beatles to go where they needed to go. And you'll learn about that in this module. Then what you're also going to learn is, okay, so rock and roll kind of goes away, rhythm and blues. What happens with black music? Well, what happens is it moves into these different types of music. You have rhythm and blues with James Brown, with Ray Charles, who's considered one of the great geniuses of popular music of rock and roll, or rock. And I'm going to start using that term rock now and all of that. And one thing to be mindful of as you go through this class is that we have entertainers, we have singers, we have songwriters, we have musicians, and then every now and then an artist comes along. And an artist is someone that's creating, that's pushing the boundaries, that's pushing the envelope, that sort of goes where the lead takes them. And Ray Charles was definitely one of those great artists. His ability to move from rhythm and blues to country to soul was really significant. So what you're going to have as we move through, again, James Brown and Ray Charles, Sam Cooke, and then you're going to move into soul music and Motown. Soul music, which was largely centered down in the South with the Stax and Volt record labels through Atlantic. And then you're going to learn about Motown, which was centered in Detroit. In fact, the term Motown was short for Motor City, which was the nickname of Detroit. So what happened is you had all these people that moved out of the South. They moved to where the factories were, where the work was. We learned about this with urban blues. Those homes, those places started to develop their musical style. So you're going to learn about soul and you're going to learn about Motown. Very different styles. I'm not going to necessarily teach you the whole lesson now because you're going to get all that material. But here's the thing I want you to be mindful of. That soul music was really geared primarily to black audiences, where the intention of Motown was really to be sort of break down the racial barriers and to basically make black music that didn't sound black, which I know in a way nowadays that lens could also seem like kind of racist or weird at the very least. But Berry Gordy wanted to make music that was the sounds of young America, that appealed to music so that people weren't thinking about it, because we don't really think about it now, but it was a very big deal back then, especially as you get into the 60s. So here's what I want you to be also mindful of. As you move into the 60s, you have these things going on. You have the Vietnam War that's ramping up. It's really kind of a police action early on. I want you to be mindful of the impact of that. You have JFK's assassination in 1963. You have Martin Luther King's Jr.'s assassination in 1968. You have also Robert Kennedy's assassination in 1968. You have the rise of the Civil Rights Movement. All of these things are going on, and we're going to kind of move from the 50s to the 60s, and we're going to live in the 60s primarily for a while now. I want you to realize that those are overarching all of that. Again, all of this exists in history. So be mindful of that, and have a good week. And let me throw out a quick little extra credit thing to see if you got this. I am only going to accept answers that get posted until Friday. But here's what I want you to do. Del Taco or Taco Bell? What's your favorite? If you could only pick one, what would it be? 10 points, extra credit for answering. Don't reply to the video on YouTube. Reply in the announcement and that this is posted in. And that's it for now. So easy 10 points, right? Just wanted to see if you're watching these things and seeing them all the way through. Hang in there. Hopefully the fires are gone. We're in November. We're starting to get the fall feeling. Stay well, do well, keep up on this. As I said at the very beginning, it moves quick. And as long as you stay up on everything, you'll be just fine. Thanks. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.